Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode. This is our 622 episodes, and most important thing is that we will discuss on NFT, and it's very important and very popular. Beside that, I want to share some great news. When we launch our World Talent Economy Forum in South Asia, we are collaborating with largest university, largest cities, and many big corporations, including Dhaka University, WTEF, and all of the big university in Asia, South Asia. And beside that, I just want to share that two cities already they are collaborating with World Talent Economy Forum with 2 billion people. So I believe what's the discussions and dialogue we are continuing. uh, I believe it will be very, very effective in South Asia. We will build up new projects, new cities, and beside that, the largest university they are collaborating with 40,000 students, and we are doing research lab. So hopefully, all of our journeys and activities, our dialogue, our debating will be more effective in South Asia. And I want to give special thanks to all of our speakers and audience, those who continuously supporting our projects. So first, I would like to give chance, Mr. Eric.
Well, it's interesting because when you talk to people about NFTs, there's a few reactions you get. Probably the most common reaction is, "What? I don't understand this stuff." Another reaction is, "Oh, but people are spending money for nothing. I don't get it. Why are people buying nothing?" Um, and then another reaction you get is, "Oh, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. This is so hot, and this is so cool." Um, but the reaction that you almost never get is, "Oh, yes, I'm looking forward to integrating NFTs into my business." So one of the problems about NFT, if you look at the Gartner hype cycle, as you can see on that hype that NFTs are climbing in, that means there's an excitement going. People know that people are buying, people know they've spent tons of money on them, but um, they don't really understand the substance. So there's inflated expectations on many people's part that NFTs are going to solve the problems of the world. And where NFTs are really going to go, I'm glad that Stephen Brentro joined us today to talk about. So that where it goes is when businesses can actually use it and make it busy and tied in. And NFTs at our core um, are digital files which show ownership. So they're not just limited to digital art. I mean, digital art is a great place. So what can we make it easy for businesses to do? I'm in San Diego, and the first thing I know is that the University of San Diego has reported they intend to put all their degrees on a blockchain. And I know how hard it is when you apply for a new job, or like I know Dr. Sharif, when you go to different universities and you teach. David Smith knows this too. It's like, oh, can you send all these transcripts and can you get copies and mail them? It's horrible. So it'd be a lot bit better if there was just a place that you could go and say, here it is. So I think one of the places in business where NFTs can really go is in tracking ownership. For example, I have a robot vacuum that just stopped working right now. And I know when we go say you're under warranty, they say, prove that you own this thing. Do you have receipts? Well, why can't they just put that in a digital file and give me an NFT? So I could say, here's my NFT. I own this thing. Part of the conditions are you fix this thing. So go do it. And it'd be the same thing as why can't I say, oh, yes, I graduated from, University of California. Here's the NFT showing that I got that. So I think this idea of records, everything from warranties to, I know people are using watches right now that are very limited edition, and they get NFTs to say you have watch number 2 to verify that kind of thing. So I think this authentication is a key part of NFTs for business. The other thing is basically this utility. I know I just got from Ticketmaster saying, oh, here you can buy a ticket. And so if that's recorded as an NFT, what that does is it makes it very easier to verify that, but it also makes it easier to transfer it. So if I want to transfer the NFT to Steven, here you go. I had it, you have it. But what's more important is, oh, do you want these VIP packages? Or here's a special deal. If you buy this thing for the next year, we'll give you 10% off. So you can actually, because they're digital files that can be acted on with smart contracts, you can actually put utility in there and you can get things from having this. Not only do you have this thing and there's a record of it, you can automatically get VIP benefits, exclusive benefits, the ability when you have this to mix with other NFTs. You can even combine these capabilities so that you can essentially go into loyalty programs where you get an extra thing. That's easy. And I think the big thing is licensing. If businesses give you something you can do, and I am the San Diego distributor for Dr. Sharif's new program, and within that is the ability for me to sell it, then I can actually, one, verify that I am the licensee, but the two thing is I could transfer that. So I think those are possible. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other ideas here, but when I look at the shortcuts that businesses are doing right now that they would understand, and I think the biggest thing is there are all kinds of things that we don't even know yet. We haven't even thought of what we could do with NFTs yet. But to me, the biggest ones are, authentication, um, VIPs or utility, and licensing.
Thank you, Professor David Smith.
Well, Sri, thank you. NFTs have become a very important uh, product and one that has come with a lot of controversy too. And that many people think that the vast majority of NFTs actually are fraud. So there's both sides of that coin as you look at it. But really, the first NFT, which stands for non-fungible token, was issued way back in 2014. So this began a while back, and it was issued on a fork of Bitcoin, which was called Namecoin. And it was very interesting because the whole thing with it actually brought a lot of money. And then you've seen organizations like the NBA publish their NFT collections and received a lot of reaction, a lot of money in there. But NFTs, as you look at them in business, are a new innovation that has the potential really to disrupt existing businesses by bringing the physical part of the business closer to the digital economy, and it really begins to go that way. But let's step back 1 second. Non-fungible tokens or NFTs are really digital tokens, are really digital trading cards that represent unique material. Most notably, and a lot of it is digital art at first, and it's really going many other places, much like Eric talked about with things like transcripts, records, and others like that. Uh, and what separates these tokens from other type of crypto assets is that they are interchangeable, that they can be sold and traded to others and used in a way that's like that. And trading occurs within the blockchain that each of them are using, where smart contracts, and smart contracts is a very important part of you looking at this. And on the blockchain, which they're on, uh, provides the token's creation, provenance, is how it is securely documented and how it's publicly accessible. And that is what actually helps creates the value for you in particularly business NFTs. Uh, and it's important for people to also realize that NFTs are similar to cryptocurrencies because they're both based on blockchain and the blockchain networks. They are very different, and they're designed for completely different purposes. NFTs for business really are created to provide ownership over certain items in the real world. And they can range, as Eric said, and others, from digital artwork, video games, music, art, things you did, things you purchased, and others. And one of the other real interesting advantages for business NFTs is anybody can create them. You need to get on a blockchain where they are available, create the smart contracts with it, and publish it, and see who will respond to your NFT and how will you put places on there. Uh, the dark side of NFTs is in the early days, many businesses begin to try to use NFTs for fundraising. And we're trying to issue NFTs on ideas and not physical objects. And that created a lot of places where a lot of money was lost in the early days on NFT. Hopefully, uh, the regulations and the use of protections around NFT has caught up to that, but that's kind of the basis of business NFTs and where it's come from.
Thank you. Mr. Stephen.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Hey, thanks for having me. I I'll start a little bit with my background because it'll help make a little bit more sense about what I'm about to say. So, I've been doing software development for over 25 years, mostly web development. Um, Done a lot of e-commerce sites, help people get e-commerce platforms off the ground, do um, payment processing, that kind of stuff, and also a lot of marketing and business related things. So um, through that, I have to pick technologies at every stage of the game and figure out, all right, so this is what they want to accomplish. How are we going to accomplish that? What tools are we going to use? And so then I start to look around. All right, MySQL database, PHP, JavaScript, whatever the technology might be, to build the solution that they need. So through those years, I've seen lots of different business challenges and problems, and sometimes those problems are solved uh, using what the business leaders, the business executives have heard is the latest, greatest technology, and they'll just jump on it and try to shoehorn whatever their problem is into that, uh, you know, technology solution, and not really back up and look at what are the key problems this is solving. So Eric and David, you guys already brought up a lot of, key um, issues with the ownership, the provenance, verification of these electronic details on chain that are use cases really for a very wide range of business problems. I spent uh, probably a half hour yesterday just making a list, and knowing full well that everybody on this call is going to name one of these things at some point, and I'm just hoping that they don't name all of mine. you know so we've got the certifications is one that I was going to bring up. Digital certifications of, like, I'm certified as a GraphQL developer. So that certification I get from Apollo GraphQL, and then I can post it on LinkedIn. But there's no really outside verification for that. So, there's use cases all across the board um, for these, and I think the key is making the right decision about how to implement them and when to implement them to be successful. And I think the NFT industry, if you want to call it that, as a whole, at the moment is pigeonholed into this digital art space. It's starting to break out into more uses, like you said, tying real world assets to the NFTs. But for the most part, when people think about NFTs, they think about Bored Ape and all these other uh, artistic creations that you can buy and hopefully get rich quick. And I don't look at it that way. I look at it as a technology solution that fits really well for certain types of problems. And in one of the businesses that I co-founded is LD2, and we tokenize silver in a vault and tie it as fungibles on chain using digital warehouse receipts, UCC warehouse receipts. And then we took it a step farther and we actually tie those to NFTs. So now you have these NFTs that represent real world value, trackable and tradable, exchangeable ways to get real world assets on chain. That was it's a solution to a problem that we had, not just that we were looking at it and saying, hey, we want to make money off of it by implementing NFT technology because we heard it's the cool thing to do lately, or the cool technology to use, but that it legitimately solves a problem. And I think that's one of the things that's going to help NFT usage in business grow, is helping people understand that it's much like, MySQL database, or you want to use Oracle instead of MySQL, or PostgreSQL to store your data, or you want to use a NoSQL database, something like that. You start to choose between these technology paradigms. Each one has its own benefits and drawbacks. And so if you can find the right match for this and encourage businesses to say, hey, you know what, I see that you've got this problem tracking ownership of tickets like Ticketmaster, and you want to open it up and have it be easier to exchange these types of goods and services, then this is a good solution for you. And I think that's really where the win's going to be in the land of NFTs, getting them to be more useful in businesses, is showing people that there's a technology advantage, not just a first mover advantage, and that it's the latest, greatest thing to do, and everybody should have an NFT or something like that. So,
Thank you. We have our friend from Malaysia, Hansley. Can you hear?
Test,
Hansley,
test,
can you
one,
hear
two,
me?
three. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Can you open
Yes.
your camera?
1 second, yeah. Let me check my camera because I think my camera having some issues. 1 second.
Okay.
Hello. Test, test, 1, 2, 3. Can
Yes.
you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So yeah, someone just sent me the link over, and I'm glad to be invited here as well. So a little bit of myself. Speaking of NFTs, I started as an NFT creator. Okay. And then after I started my NFT journey in December, I started um, venturing in the NFT space. So currently, I'm a part of a team of one of the latest NFT marketplace, which is called 369, and they are focusing on ticketing, INO Launchpad, and yeah, currently we are 2 months old, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Eric, like as we are introducing this NFT metaverse to the lot of South Asian youth communities and the policymakers, so how it can be helpful for the economy, for the economic actions, or one of our audience say, isn't what his name, Mr. Ted, isn't it effectively used a barcode, or how you want to respond this question?
Well, sure, you could put a barcode on an NFT, the digital representation of one. I mean, the way you want to, an NFT at its heart is a file. So if you want to link a file to a card or a barcode, have at it. But but what the NFT at all is, it represents something that has ownership, and as David brought up, something that's unique. The non-fungible part means you can't just exchange one for the other. Like Hans Lee and I can't exchange houses one-on-one because a house does not equal a house. Maybe if we have the exact same house in the exact same neighborhood in the exact same condition, but even if you have the same house, it's not the exact same condition, so it becomes unique. So it's non-fungible.
Thank you.
But a barcode just takes you to a site. There's nothing behind a barcode by except for a point of information. The NFT actually contains information that's beyond that, and it's typically stored in a blockchain, which means, as Stephen brought on, it's stored in a database. A barcode is not stored in a database. But to answer your question, the first thing is what Stephen brought up. When you're saying how do you expand this in Asia market, the first thing is to identify the problems you want to solve, rather than say start with an NFT. Unless if you're like Hans Lee and you have this great solution, then yeah, you're a solution in search of a problem. That's important too. But if you take the other side, it's like, well, let's make sure we understand the problems and where NFTs fit and where they don't fit. And then once you have that idea of a problem, then it's how do you implement it? And here's the key, I think Hans Lee is doing some things like Stephen, which is trying to make this stuff easy. Because you could start doing this stuff a few years ago, but everything was hard. You want to put stuff in a blockchain, it's hard. You want to assign money for it or put it on a marketplace, it's hard. When you go to sites like, Atomic Hub or Nifty Blocks or all these, there's always like, okay, we have to have somebody show you how to do it because it's hard. Now, is it getting easier? Oh, yeah, especially the blockchain part of it, but even the interfaces to the blockchain, there's always something that makes it hard. So for me, that's the biggest problem right now. So we have this social layer. We're allowed to connect and play and share and create, and NFTs are a way of capturing some of this creation in terms of real products, services, capabilities, privileges. A lot of people are actually using the NFTs to divide up pieces of a project. Even consensus. We've talked a lot about, in this live stream about consensus. Your status result of consensus, that can be a product too. So if we just say, who do we think is the best person here to integrate real, digital stuff with real world stuff, we might say, oh, let's rate Stephen and give him an NFT that even captures that level of consensus. So it can capture things like that. But it can also, when you get things like city DAO and where people are actually breaking up things like cities, or there's land DAOs where you can actually break up something into pieces and they document that pieces with NFTs. So for example, you can buy a square foot of olive land, a farm, by buying NFT. If you want 2 square feet, you buy 2. So that takes us down to the other side. So you've got this social layer, then you've got this technical layer, how we're going to store and make it easy to connect. But the other part of that is this economic layer. So how are we going to divide that up and store it? And so now you have all these different senses of value, like Stephen talked about. Silver or gold is value, but it could also be Bitcoin or Ethereum. And so now you have this idea of associating the economics with these NFTs in addition to just the properties and breaking that up. So, it starts with this idea of what problem we're going to try to solve, which block are we going to use to use as the technical layer for this problem, then how are we going to make the interchange correctly in terms of how do we move something between Hans Lee and David and Stephen and Dr. Sharif and myself, and what privileges are backing it up, and how do you write a smart contract with the tools? That's the biggest thing, is these NFTs can be actionable even automatically with a set of rules, which is also something that you can't do with the barcode. So kind of summing up is starting at the social layer, who wants to get together to solve what problem is this a Fed? Then it's like, okay, which technical layer are we going to use now that we know that's a problem to use this thing? And then how are we going to do the economy of it, basically the tokenization, a tokenized economy to back this up and move that around. So those are the three steps: is people, problem definition, technical solution, then the tokenization and the economic implementing that, which is, I think David might agree with. It's got a long way to go, but are some things usable? Yeah. Some things, there's some businesses now like Blockery that are making it easy for regular businesses to put things on the blockchain, like their watches or their certifications, without even understanding the blockchain, because they do all that for you.
Excellent. Professor David Smith.
Eric hit it right on the head there, and there's a new type of service that's really taken off in the last 6-7 months called blockchain as a service. So it's kind of like software as a service, platform as a service. We now have blockchain as a service. And it has really made it much easier for businesses, and particularly startups and even universities, to begin to embrace the concept of using the blockchain. When we've spoken about blockchain, Sharif, on your programs before, I've told you that the initial blockchains were great, but they were had some security problems. What we're seeing is a new generation of blockchains, a blockchain 2.0 have you, where they're beginning to address a lot of those issues. And there is a difference, as we've spoken about before, between public blockchains and private blockchains. It's kind of interesting with some of the comments that Ted is making in the public comment section of equating NFTs and blockchains to a barcode. And when you scan a barcode, in most instances, it's taking you to public information or other type of information or a software download. It's not giving you physical ownership. And an NFT, particularly a business NFT, begins to give you some ownership of what you're doing. And he also says it doesn't mean it's just digital receipts. Well, it goes beyond that. It says that you have done this, that you've owned this, that you have done the skills, you've gotten the grades you wanted to do for it. For the government, it might mean you registered your car, you registered to vote, and you did other things like that, where they give you rights and capabilities. So there is a big difference between it. And there's actually a type of NFT called a utility NFT, which is also known as a lowercase u NFT, which provides the holder of that NFT the perks, opportunities, other things like that. Some of the big magazines and others like that are beginning to use that type of utility NFT in a very good way. For example, Time Magazine does an amazing job with what they call their Timepieces Discord community. What they do is they give you out a secret word that when you go into their website and put that in, it will then grant you access to the utility NFT and give you the ability to have proof of attendance, proof of participation. It will give you access to the things that happened during that Time Magazine article and discussion that's been going on. And that is one of the applications that's really good. I'm seeing that because we have a lot of a mix now of education that is virtual education and in-person education. It's easy for people when you're in person to really understand who's there, were they in class the whole time, but many are beginning to use these utility NFTs to go and say, yes, David was in that course, and David was in the course from the start when he dropped out at this time. And you're seeing that happen really quite a bit. One word of caution, though, because as we're seeing particularly that type of NFT used, we're seeing spammers beginning to start using it too. So if just like with email, just like text messages and others, if you receive direct NFT links from particularly utility blockchain NFTs, be very suspicious of the links that are in there, because some of those are taking you to places that you really don't want to see. Now, Eric's talked about some of the other NFT sites. One of my other favorites is one called OpenSea, and you begin to see a lot of different objects and things traded there. But Sharif, I want to go back to one of the things that you said earlier about the potential of NFTs in business. We're beginning to see it used in all types of business. I think the next wave you're going to see of NFTs is you're going to be seeing governments begin to use NFTs more, particularly governments where they are trying to transition away from a paper-based record keeping system to a digital record keeping system. And many of them have tried to do it, as was said earlier, with setting up large databases, large data warehouses, and data lakes and like that to try to do it. But the blockchain portion of the NFT, where you have the record keeping transparency, I think that's going to be one of the differences that help governments in some instances move to using it, and also some governments where they do not want the transparency not use it. So you have to go back and forth with both of those as you look at this. I love that you have an entrepreneur from Asia on the panel today, because the area of entrepreneurship based around NFTs, particularly not the art side, not the collectible side, but how they can be used in commerce, how they could be used in government, how they could be used in universities and others, I think is a great opportunity for entrepreneurship. And as you know, I'm on the investment committee for the International Accelerator here in the United States. And at our last investment committee meeting, we actually accepted a company into it that has created commercial NFTs to streamline your experience of going to a concert, from buying the tickets, securing the seats, to buying gifts from the audience, to everything you do within the venue, all controlled by that NFT as an ongoing NFT during the event, because these are properties which you, in essence, are owning, but you have the whole record of the experience there too. And so the ability for entrepreneurship is really pretty good in this right now. And it's just the entrepreneurs need to really carefully look at the business case and carefully look at privacy and security when it comes to moving into this place. Because privacy and security are still some of the places where NFT based blockchain, well, blockchain based NFTs still have a lot of work to be done. So Sharif, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Steven.
Yeah, I just want to point out too on I do agree with David on the security and the privacy part of it, but I also want to point out that regardless of the privacy needs, they could choose a private blockchain. Like for instance, the EOS.io stack, it's not hard to spin up your own. Well, I say not hard. It takes a lot of hardware to do it and to scale it right, but setting up your own blockchain node that is a private node and then transacting just on that is not that difficult. And you can pull over existing technologies. For instance, the atomic assets contracts are open source. So if you wanted to do NFTs and do it completely private, you could grab a copy of that source code, deploy it on a private blockchain, and start building from there, and really expand from there. I think when it comes to countries doing this and governments doing this, one of the places that I've seen recently is a move in Singapore, I believe it was, where they're trying to figure out a way to tokenize or digitize all the warehouse receipts for the the shipping containers and goods that are coming in and out of the country. And this was something that was done more on a private scale or a private basis with Maersk and IBM a few years ago. They worked to optimize their customs procedures, because when a ship comes into port, they have to have all their customs documentation in order and approved, signed off on, before they are allowed to pull into that port. And so what you would have happening is, some pieces of paperwork are lost, and the ship is sitting out at sea, 20 miles out of port, and not allowed to come in for days or however long, until the problem is rectified, and then they're brought in and allowed to do that. So by putting all these things on chain with customs paperwork and things like that, you can automate the process and immediately know, all right, we're missing this, and have that taken care of before the ship ever gets there. It also, I think every sector of society really can benefit from it in Asia. I think it is, again, just being mindful of where it's needed and where it's not. And if you can point out something and say, hey, we can speed up development in this area or make things easier in this area, that would be great. One of the other things I want to point out too is that from a development perspective, I'm thinking like a software developer here. You get choices of whether you want to custom build something yourself using a framework or use something that's off the shelf. So if you have a scenario, let's say, that you need to track the event ticketing issue, you could custom build all that yourself and get the same functionality pretty much as NFTs give you. Or you could look at the NFT setups on different blockchains and the different APIs that they use and say, this actually gets us one step closer and eliminates a whole bunch of development for us. And somebody else is going to support the blockchain nodes, and somebody else is going to support the APIs ongoing. And it just makes it easier to do the development. So here's just a quick example. Let's say you've got a gym, right? Some 24-hour workout facility, and you sell memberships. You could go and get an off-the-shelf gym membership solution. Maybe you can't find one that you like, but you could also custom build one, or you could take most of the software development out of it and just build a front end that connects to an NFT-based one on any of the blockchains and sell these NFTs, and you don't even tell your users that they're NFTs, right? You just tell them, hey, we're selling memberships, and they have no idea how this is all happening, and they frankly don't care. They want their membership, and they want to be able to go into the gym and, maybe check in with their phone, and it lets them in. Again, they don't know that it's an NFT. They don't care, but it's using the NFT technology more in business. So I would encourage anybody who is wanting to push NFT technology more into business in any country, in any region, really, to think more outside of the box, to think like, all right, I'm going to solve business problems. This is one of the things in my toolkit. And I think we're going to see people pull this tool out of the toolkit more and more frequently as they understand, hey, this is the power of it, and these are the solutions it solves, and run with it. But there's again, it's exciting. There's so many uses for it, both government and private sector. So
Thank you. Hansley, so
All
what
right.
type of challenges you are facing?
What type of challenges? I mean, I would like to share based on my experience. Speaking of utility NFT, so basically, I started my own NFT project back in December. So I'm based in Malaysia. So this whole project is launched in Malaysia. So what are the utility behind my NFT? So basically, I think this is also a good idea for to those who wants to start a NFT project. So basically, for my project, what do I do is basically I create a simple collection of characters, and then for the utility behind every NFT sold, basically I would call it I raise funds through my NFT collections by creating a library for the hospital in my area for the children. So basically, every NFT sold is equivalent to a book. So I will donate a book on behalf of my holder as a utility of the project of my project. So I think I mean this blockchain technology is very flexible and unique. You know, you can do anything with NFT basically. So not just this is just something that I just came up with, but then maybe in the future someone has better ideas, better plans to do something similar, then it would be great, you know, other than just normal collectible with some similar utilities. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Jason.
Thank you. Yeah, I had, I guess I want to say teacher, wouldn't put an official teacher, but I had a teacher explain to me once that there is no best vehicle. He drew a comparison to say which vehicle is the best vehicle, a motorcycle or a fast sports car or a big, heavy, overloaded SUV. And the answer really depends on where you are and where you need to go. And that there are circumstances in which any of those three could be the best vehicle for what your need is. And I think that the reason that analogy came to mind is because of what is an NFT. In that Steve's point was, if you're selling gym memberships and you give somebody a technology to access and use the door, you give them a card or you give them a code or whatever you give them, they might be curious about how your membership technology works, or they might not. I agree with Steve. Chances are, on average, most people are not. I think that it's also fair to say, for those who are interested, if they are concerned, if they look into it and they're concerned, like there's a vulnerability, that they'll tell everybody, and that you won't sell as many gym memberships if your technology of membership is not secure or not private or something like that, right? So there's like a minority of the group. There's a small subset of any group that is really sort of technologically curious to scratch the surface and say, like, how does it really work? And those people need to be satisfied so that they don't discourage anybody else. And I think that to say that the gym membership is an NFT actually is a bit of a deterrent, because it sounds gimmicky, because people, the average audience, for where we're at in the market maturity, I think at the moment, I might be wrong about this, but just where I think we're at in the market maturity is that the average audience member has associated the idea of an NFT in their mind with the idea of an image, right? Like that it's a piece of art, and that like that's okay, but like it comes with concerns. Obviously, I don't need to get into the nitty-gritty of why people are concerned with the speculative nature of the market and what's happening for the collectibles and the art in the space with NFTs, and that's a big idea that has a way of sort of being the primary concept for a person if they think to themselves, what is an NFT? How do I understand it? The first thing that'll come to mind is speculative art, right? High-tech art or something, and maybe not gym membership, maybe not proof of donation, maybe not proof of attendance, maybe not bill of lading, maybe not any of those things. I mean, also building on Steve's point, there was a project, I remember the blockchain wars about the supply chain and the pain points in it, about how if and when there is ever a ship at sea that should be in port, or a train that is stuck in transit that should have arrived, that just the debt service on the inventory of the cargo amounts to a tremendous amount of money. Just the daily debt service, because whoever's owning that inventory in transit is typically waiting for it to be cleared before they will transfer ownership and then pay their debt and all that. And like one day of interest that they pay on that is a pain point that would, if they could speed it up just marginally that much, it would be great. Except that here's the problem. When they looked at public chains, they thought, we need to control it. All these public chains are too expensive per transaction. We can't scale with them. So they looked at private blockchains. But the competitors, they're natural competitors in this industry. And they all wanted to have their own private blockchain. That this is a network effect. The necessity of this is a network effect in that whoever is creating the NFT, it needs to be acceptable. It needs to be accepted by the counterparty. Otherwise, I mean, it's just sort of a waste of effort, right? The promise is definitely there, and the NFT part of it is not the incomplete part. Actually, the NFT part is just about ready. That like we can use them in all these ways and create all these savings and create all these extra utilities and increase value, and that part of it is fine. It needs an ecosystem in which it operates, in that an ecosystem that has a network effect with sort of a standard assigned, the standards that are out there, normalization that's out there, that people are creating receipts this way and also interpreting and keeping them and things like that. So I think I'll leave my comments at just that for now. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Eric, what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
Well, we've talked about the individual applicability to businesses, and Ted brings up a great point that why go through all the trouble if all you need is a QR code and a barcode? And I think Stephen would back that up and say, yes, if that's all you need, that's way easier. We talked about the ability for people to create this documents, and with these files is to collaborate with them, add utility to them, and things like that. But one thing, Stephen brought up the gym membership. So when I had a gym membership, I got access to a separate golf course, and then I got things with other gym memberships. Well, one of the problems was that those members kept changing. This week you could use this golf course. The next week you got to deal with a movie theater, a restaurant, or as these things got bought and sold. So you've got this layer where you have this data in there. Same thing with airline memberships. If I'm United and they're part of this network, when I got my United, they just sent me a digital in addition to the regular one that I put in my wallet on my phone, and I go in when we were flying all the time, and I would just show it, and they would say, oh, good, you're in and you get this. Here's the privileges that you get. But when I went to another airline around the world in their club, it worked too. So the key is, because of the smart chain infrastructure, that you can change that very easily to change utility. So not only can you put fixed utility in there, you'll get 10% off for life, and you can transfer that card. You can actually use this to connect with people. So I think the whole thing is the interaction between businesses or customers or groups. You can even capture consensus like they do in Fractally with NFTs, even in gamings. You can access multiple technical layers. And I think what Steven's telling you is you can actually back these with all kinds of real assets. You can even say it's part silver and a gym membership, and you get this. So the one thing about these things is you can combine the cards, which is a lot difficult to do things. You can actually combine these, and actually then you can actually add utility and recognition across different groups and change it as the group changes. So it's a big market with potential we haven't even thought of yet.
Thank you. Professor David Smith, what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
Well, this is a great topic again, because NFTs have created a lot of new ways to monetize physical assets, which is really good. But corporate NFTs are really an exciting new way for consumers to engage with, interact, and do things with the favorite brands. And some of the world's biggest brands are now beginning to jump in onto the blockchain area as well. I also want to say on this one that I agree so much with what Eric just said. I've been traveling a lot internationally the last month and a half, and my ability to use my own NFTs, my own tokens, my other things like that have been really great to use, as opposed to pulling cards and things out of my passport holder and like that. And they are pretty global around. So you begin to see that usage too. Remember though that NFTs have their own identity, that they're non-interchangeable with other items unless you really match them up by their identifiers, and you need to be careful with that. One of the scams we have seen is, for example, the same piece of artwork being sold multiple times on different blockchain networks, so that the ownership wasn't there. So if you're doing NFTs, take time to understand the smart contract that goes with it. The smart contract spells out a lot of your rights and things. If you're particularly doing NFTs, try to do them on the newer generation of blockchain versus the original generation of blockchain. And again, I just want to put this back in context. The first NFT was done in 2014. So it's a technology that has been around for a while, but just in the last 2 years has begun to hit the really growth part of that S-curve. So it's one that's going and can have very good things to do in the future. It's one that should be considered in corporate roadmaps, but you have to have people like Steve and Hans who understand the technology well to be able to implement it well as well. And again, privacy and security is one of the biggest challenges today when you come to implementing this type of technology. So, Dr. Fu, thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Steven, what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
So this has been great discussion, great points by all. The coolest thing to me is starting to combine a lot of these different features. So we were talking about the utility of it, and then as Eric pointed out, I like to attach real world value to things. So I mean, you could have a Bored Ape or anything like that. I don't have a Bored Ape, by the way, but if you have this digital art and you're unsure of its future value, the content creators could attach real world value to it to give you kind of like this insurance that if anything ever happened to their collection, you could always just burn that NFT and get this real world value out. And going back to the gym membership, something like that does give you the opportunity to go into a different direction that you may not have thought of before. So, for instance, you can expand it into, sharing that membership across locations or different businesses. But you could also even open it up that you can buy and sell your gym memberships on a secondary market. Open up an exchange marketplace, and whatever the NFT represents can now be bought and sold and traded freely, that opens up a whole nother realm of possibilities. So I think one of the most exciting things is we look at all these different pieces, these different features of NFTs, is to pull them together and use them together in a way that starts to create products and services and solutions that no one has ever seen before.
Thank you. Mr. Hansley, what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
So basically, tonight's session is pretty fruitful, I guess. I personally think NFTs are not just a piece of art. So it can be used in various ways, like what the discussion just mentioned just now earlier. It can be used in like ticketing, can use as invoices. So yeah, I mean this technology is pretty great, I think, and we are still early. I think there's a lot more possibilities that we can slowly see in the future, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Jason.
Thank you. Collections and art have always been very valuable things, and they're not new. So don't be worried about the speculative aspect of NFTs. I think it's super cool. I think it's spend what you do on other collectibles, and that's it. That's the only guidance I give on that. It's not financial advice. But also understand that this bubble's not going to pop that fast, just like other collectibles don't, right? It absorbs a lot of the circulating money if people are concerned about expansionary monetary policy wherever they are, that this is just something that soaks up extra circulating liquidity and becomes its own artifact of like subjective appreciation, that people attach a story to the NFT that they possess, and that the amount they spent on it is an important part of that story. Human behavior and economics in that way are a little bit fickle, but on the utility side of NFTs, the way to understand this is the longevity value. If you really want to keep that information, if you want to keep that proof of attendance, proof of donation, the receipt, like a proof of ownership, if the longevity of that information is really important, then the digital format of NFT is really where it belongs. The last point I'd care to make is that the digital age was supposed to help us go paperless, but it backfired. Do you know this story? How everyone thought we were going to do better for the environment by going paperless because of digital? Paper backups for like everything digital, right? And storing NFTs, using them for their full utility, really, really moves the margin on us being able to potentially be paperless or more paperless. One-to-one, even if it is proof of work, that's a major advantage environmentally. So there's that to consider too, for the impact of inks and papers and all the rest. I think that Dr. Sharif might have an internet connection.
He should be back soon to
Okay.
sum up that. But I think what we're all saying is that this is an exciting new field. But like anything new, it takes everybody a while to figure out where it belongs, just in terms of what we do. We tend to think of things as what we already know. So the NFT is just a barcode. The NFT, well, it's just art. The NFT. So the first thing we like to do is make ourselves feel comfortable by putting it in a frame that fits what we already know or what we already do. The second part of that is realizing, there's new things. And then the biggest thing, and David brought this up a lot, is there's the big potential for when you don't understand something, somebody who does understand something takes advantage of that and either controls or cheats other people. So, we need that kind of frame group of people to say, well, no, this is where it makes sense. This is where it doesn't. Don't go for that. You don't want the equivalent of the click on this cute kitten and something bad happens, which can happen because somebody can give you an NFT to mark you, because I can transfer NFTs. If I have your address, I can say, you now own this Ku Klux Klan NFT. Here you go. Like, wait a minute. I don't want that one. So again, expect that not only are we going to find some good, we're going to find some bad that comes along with this, and it's going to take a while for it to settle down and deal with it like any other new technology we've ever had.
Yeah, totally. It's a network effect in that, there's a story about Gresham's Law with the technology of money, where there were a lot of vendors and businesses that were willing to receive Ethereum or receive Bitcoin in exchange for their goods and services. Although the mismatch in this dynamic was that consumers were less interested in spending their Ethereum or spending their Bitcoin to buy goods and services, because their preference was to use their local national currency to buy goods and services, and also to use their local national currency to buy Ethereum and Bitcoin. And see, if a business wants to give you an NFT receipt, it only works if you as the consumer also want to receive an NFT receipt. Right? It's a network effect, and that's the maturity curve of the technology.
Thank you everyone for joining today's sessions. And you know that World Talent Economy Forum, we are launching our real projects in South Asia. So those who are interested to collaborate with our lab, you can join, and we are engaging with millions and million peoples with real projects. So those who have real projects, who want to do projects in developing nation, they can integrate it with World Talent Economy Forum lab. So thank you everyone for joining today's sessions, and I want to give special thanks to the audience of South Asia, because how they welcome World Talent Economy Forum. It's actually beyond my imaginations. I'm getting support from the largest universities, especially from the government agencies, from the corporations. It's really beyond my imagination. So I want to give thanks to all of our audience, those who are supporting our projects. And definitely we will work for talent economy, and through the talents we will develop new knowledge economy, which will be helpful for the developing world. And definitely the developed world's people support will be helpful and will be effective for our audience. Thank you, bye bye, and take care.